embodies the collaborative spirit of the Intersections Festival. I don't think you could write a better ticket for that. I'm sure you'll have some questions for the choreographers or the collaborators, and if you could be thinking about them, certainly we'll give you the opportunity to ask those questions. Have a seat. Hi. Okay, so I'm going to let each of them identify themselves. I'm just going to pass this mic down.
Hi, I'm Olivia Savy. I'm the Associate Director of MOVEiUS, and I choreographed Invisible Steps, the last piece of the program.
Hi, I'm Shelly Stiller, and I'm out of breath from Olivia's piece. I choreographed In Flames, and I dance for MOVEiUS, and I choreograph for them.
I'm Danny Schwartz. I'm an Associate Director of Parallel Octave. We do Greek choruses with public domain poetry.
Hi, I'm Sarah Waldrop. I'm a dancer with MOVEiUS. I don't choreograph, but I've been with MOVEiUS since just about the beginning. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys have about working with the company from a dancer's perspective.
And I'm Diana, a choreographer of Praying for Rain.
Maybe I'll get started with a question for Olivia and Danny about the collaborative nature of her piece. And I'd like to get things started by asking you to talk about your collaborative process and how you think that it affected the final outcome of the work.
Do you want to start? Okay. So I guess I'll start. I came to Parallel Octave with a set of texts that I was interested in using for this piece. I knew that I wanted to use text as a major element of the work, but I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do that. So I came to Parallel Octave, I took the texts, and Danny sort of helped shape what happened after that. Do you want to talk about your process?
Yeah, so normally we just do music and poetry together, and we mostly record and put it up on our website, paralleloctave.com, if you guys want to go there. So this is, and Olivia approached me, and so this was the first time that we ever did anything with dance, and so we talked about what parts of the text that we'd like to emphasize, and those are the parts that you heard being done in the chorus-like manner, and then we just went to rehearsals, and it kind of just went from there.
Yeah, the score changed over time as we worked. First we recorded it once, Parallel Octave recorded it, we took it into the rehearsal room and pieced it together with the piano music. And it changed a little bit as we went, and then once we started having rehearsals with the musicians, we noticed that the tempos were very different. It's interesting for us to work with improv musicians because that is not what we do on a normal day. So it was a lot of fun, but always changing.
Yeah. Agreed.
So since you found this very multi-layered use of poetry and improvisation from the musicians and choreography, does that stimulate any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
I was very interested that there were 3 languages used for the poetry, and that was very interesting and challenging. Did you originally start out with the intention of having 3 languages? It sounded like there were native speakers in French, English, and Italian.
We gotta share. Yes, I was trying to use texts that deal with sort of the issues surrounding dance notation, virtuosity, expressiveness, and what is the part of dance that is important to you as the viewer, as the choreographer, as a dancer. And so I started with 18th century texts primarily, and that was why they were primarily French, because there was a big dialogue between the French and the Italians at that time. And part of the emphasis that Danny was talking about in the text was to sort of aid the audience in understanding, hopefully finding key words that resonate in multiple languages.
Did you want to say
I can try to think of something to say. But I think one of the things that we experienced with the French, at least, was that the French was very not correct French, right? Or like old style French, and so I was throwing our French speaker for, you know, more.
So one of the texts was from, one of the texts is a letter written by Tamara Karsavina, who is a native Russian speaker, and it was a letter in an archive. It was in very bad French, and we actually had to correct it in order to feel good about using it as part of the piece because it was so bad.
She was a ballet person.
She was a ballet person.
Definitely ballet person. I wanted to ask you about, well, were you in Kathleen's piece?
No, I was in this television.
Well, could someone, I really wanted to know that. Okay, you were in Kathleen's piece. Could you speak to the element of having a live musician on stage and how it affected, what made different your performance as opposed to recorded music? There's so much discussion about that these days.
Yeah, so true. It was definitely very different than working with recorded music, because with recorded music you know exactly what's going to happen every single time because it's a recording. But with the live musician, it was challenging to get the tempo, you know, sort of to what we were used to and what she was used to playing. But I really found that there was a bunch of extra things that I could do with it because there was a live person there and she would breathe and then we would breathe, and it was sort of, it helped the piece grow, I think, to have a live musician.
And for you, would there be a difference that you would have noticed or experienced with there being another performer on the stage changing the overall look of the piece by the fact that there's a live musician on stage? Anybody have a comment about that? Nobody? Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think that's a very interesting piece, as it's been choreographed many times before, and I've heard it played continuously, and I was impressed that there were breaths between the segments here. That was, I was wondering, why were these particular variations chosen? Why was it structured in this way? You know, it isn't 70 minutes of a continuous piece. It was very interesting.
Would you know anything about her choice of order or?
I could say something about the dancing music.
Sure.
Yeah, we actually had our pianist Erjen add in a few breaths for us as the dancers, because sometimes it was a lot at once, so when she would add the breath, it would give us all a second to sort of collect our thoughts and then move on to the next movement. So a lot of those were choreographer and dancer added breaths.
Could you talk a little bit about the elements of your piece? Here. Okay. Good.
Well, I think for me, actually, contrary to what it may appear, the piece really started for me with the music, and I actually watched the Ken Burns Dust Bowl documentary last year and was really struck by it. And then I kind of stole a CD from my dad and really liked it. And the music made me think of changing seasons, but sort of in an ominous way. And that's kind of what sparked the Dust Bowl idea. And the big experiment for me in this showing of the piece, I did show the piece in the fall at Montgomery College, but without the projections. So the big kind of experiment was adding in historical photographs. And actually that, I think, made it a lot more concrete and kind of meaningful for me, because I felt like the photographs that I chose kind of echoed the intensity of the music. I suspect, I mean, I've heard, from some of the dancers that helped give them, a better feeling of purpose in the piece.
Well, I've seen it on both occasions, and it really made the piece fuller to me and made me better understand where you were going with it. So I've seen it twice. Were there any of the visuals that were particularly meaningful to you or enhanced your viewing of this piece? Has anybody seen it more than once? So do you have an opinion about that?
I also thought it was wonderful with the photographs. The rolling rain cloud, maybe 2/3 of the way into the car there is incredibly, you get sort of dry, it's dry, the rain's going to come. Oh No, the Rain's Coming, which is an interesting turn of the piece.
I enjoyed the pictures of the children. I thought it gave it so much more texture. Yeah. If I'm missing hands, wave them so that I see. Yes, here.
I thought it really helps give kind of imagination to character and like family building and how someone could take the role of maybe the mother, but then the next one, you know, she's a young child looking around. So I appreciated the imagination that was kind of cross-eyed and figured out. And because no one was fixed in a certain character, so that was really nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed especially the dancers taking part, all being elements of the fauna. The flora. You know, the growing of plants. In one moment they were one character, in one moment another. Bringing us to all of the exciting things that can happen with multimedia. Sometimes works, then finally doesn't work. Initially doesn't work, and then works beautifully. Can you talk about maybe not this particular experience with it, but your intent?
Yeah, I was terrified to work with multimedia, but I'm really glad that I did because it really pushed me as a choreographer, as an artist. I really loved what ended up happening with the dancers' movement, in the background. It was really fun to see all of those things sort of come together. It was a little nerve-wracking at times to see if it would all come together, but it did. Yay! So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very proud of it.
Would anybody like to comment on the audio visuals for that piece? Well, then I have a question. I would very much like to know about the whiteness. I sensed volumes of lots of tears, or what? Do you mind sharing with us what the extended whiteness was?
Sure. I guess it was sort of the emptiness that you would feel at the end of a relationship. There was supposed to be, you know, smoke kind of curling in the background too, alongside the whiteness. So the emptiness and, you know, the smoke after the flame of the relationship has been blown out, sort of curling around, and the emotions of the people that were in that relationship sort of billowing around as the smoke billowed around.
Thank you. Anybody have a question? A comment? Thank you so much for, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
I was just wondering about your core in that piece, and they loved the costume. And were they symbolic of helping in some way intangibly to tear apart the relationship?
Yeah, the dancers in black embodied the forces that pulled apart the relationship. So the first piece was symbolic of they had just broken up and how they internalized those feelings. Maybe the breakup was because they didn't communicate with each other. So it was sort of, they would dance one at a time, and then when they danced together, they weren't really, you know, they weren't looking at each other all the time, so it was their internal struggles. And then the second piece was, the first piece was the what happened, and the second piece was the why it happened. So, yeah, so the two dancers in black, they were the problem.
I'd like to ask the dancer on stage if she could share a little bit about the experience of dancing with this company, and also could you talk a little bit about the collaborative nature of the group?
Yeah, as I said, I've been with this company pretty much since the first time that we did a piece, when it was just sort of, hey, let's get together and put on a show. It's come a long way since then. This company is a little bit different from a lot of ballet companies, I think, in that the dancers really work together to put this on. You know, as you've seen, people are choreographers and dancers. People deal with the, you know, what are the sets going to look like, what are the costumes going to look like, and I think it definitely is different from sort of a top-down structure that a lot of companies have, in that we're sort of very open to ideas. People will throw out anything, literally. We just asked for, you know, what are your ideas for next season? And people are like, well, you know, how about this, how about that? And that, sometimes really interesting stuff comes out of that, where one person may not have a fully formed idea and someone else doesn't have a fully formed idea, but you put them together and it's actually kind of cool, and you come up with something really neat. So we've got some great stuff in the works, I think, that are coming out of those kinds of conversations where we're all coming together and talking about what are we going to try next, and where do we want to go, that I think you'd get more sort of one person's vision in some companies. So this makes it, I think, a rich experience both to dance with and hopefully as an audience member.
Yeah, I would say that I staged a piece on this company last year and felt that the willingness of the dancers to go just about anywhere that I asked them to go in fulfilling the vision of the choreographer, which was not me, Sarah Campton. It was really wonderful to work with this company, and we're all glad to see you active in dancing. Thank you so much. Thank you, dancers.